My name is Alara Voss, and I used to believe love was the softest place a person could ever land, until I learned it could also be the sharpest edge. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps these stories reach the hearts that need them most. Alara met Cale Arden on a day the sky couldn't decide whether to rain or forgive. The city looked washed out, like someone had dragged a wet cloth over the world, and Alara was rushing out of the small photography studio where she worked, late again, carrying a tote bag with a broken zipper and a head full of deadlines. Her heel caught the edge of the sidewalk. She stumbled, and her phone slipped from her hand, skidding across the pavement toward the street. "Careful," a voice said, low, steady, before a hand reached out and stopped the phone right at the curb. Alara froze the way people do when they feel something shift, even before they understand what it is. She looked up. Cale stood there like he'd stepped out of a quiet song. Not flashy, not loud, just present. His hair was dark and slightly messy, his shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, and his eyes, those eyes, held the calm of someone who had seen storms and learned how to stand inside them. He offered her the phone. "You almost sacrificed this to traffic." Alara took it, breath catching. "It was trying to escape my life." Cale's mouth curved, not quite a smile, more like a secret. "I understand that." She should have said thank you and walked away. She should have kept him in the category of strangers who saved my phone. But something about his tone, like he recognized exhaustion the way an old friend does, made her linger. "You do?" Alara asked. Cale nodded once. "Some days feel like they're made of weight." That was the first moment Alara felt seen. Not admired. Not flirted with. Seen. They started meeting like that, accidentally on purpose. Outside the same coffee shop at the corner of Renfield Avenue, where Cale always ordered tea instead of coffee, and Alara always pretended she wasn't addicted to sugar. He'd sit by the window with a notebook, not writing, just watching the world like he was trying to memorize it. One afternoon, Alara asked, "What do you do in there?" "Stare at people until they reveal their secrets." Cale's eyes warmed. "I try to understand why people don't say what they mean." Alara laughed. "That sounds exhausting." "It is," he admitted, "but less exhausting than pretending." The truth was, Alara was tired of pretending too. Her life looked fine from the outside. She had a small apartment with peeling paint and a neighbor who played music too loudly. She had a job that paid just enough to keep her afloat. She had friends who smiled and said she was doing great, because everyone says that in the city like it's a prayer. But inside, she carried grief she didn't show. Her mother had died 2 years earlier, quietly, the way candles go out when nobody is watching. Alara had been holding her mother's hand in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and silence. Her father hadn't come. He hadn't come because he'd left long before that. Alara had learned early that some people disappear and still expect to be forgiven. After her mother's funeral, Alara promised herself she wouldn't need anyone the way she needed her mother. And then Cale Arden arrived like the universe didn't care about her promises. He didn't chase her. He didn't drown her in compliments. He listened. He asked questions like he genuinely wanted to know the answers. "What's your favorite thing to photograph?" he asked one evening as they walked across a bridge, city lights trembling in the river beneath them. Alara thought, "People who don't know they're beautiful." Cale glanced at her. "So everyone." Alara rolled her eyes. "That's not what I meant." "I know," Cale said softly. "But you're not wrong." He started sending her small messages, short, gentle ones that felt like hands warming cold fingers. "Cale, don't forget to eat today." "Cale, I saw a sunset that looked like your favorite color." "Cale, I hope the world was kind to you." Alara didn't know when her heart began to lean toward him. It just did. It happened in pieces. A laugh she didn't force. A smile that lasted longer than it should. A sense of safety that felt unfamiliar. One night, after a long day, Alara found herself at his apartment. It was simple, clean walls, soft lighting, the kind of place that felt like someone had carefully removed chaos. Cale handed her a mug of warm tea. "You're shaking." "I'm fine," she lied automatically. Cale didn't argue. He just moved closer, slow, as if giving her time to decide whether she wanted comfort or distance. Alara stared into the steam rising from her mug. "I hate that I still miss my mother like it happened yesterday." Cale's voice was barely above a whisper. "Grief doesn't obey calendars." Alara swallowed. "I don't want to be weak in front of you." Cale's gaze held hers. "Let me tell you something. The strongest people are the ones who keep going while their hearts ache." The tears came before Alara could stop them. She turned away quickly, embarrassed. Kale reached for her hand, gentle. Ilara. She looked at him, eyes wet, and it felt like standing in front of a mirror that refused to flatter her. It showed her real. Kale brushed a tear from her cheek with the back of his thumb like the act was sacred. You don't have to be strong with me. That was the first time Ilara realized she wanted him. Not just near her, but in her life. Later, when Kale walked her home, they stopped at her door. The hallway light flickered like it couldn't handle the moment. Ilara's voice came out shaky. Kale. He leaned slightly closer. Yes. I think, Ilara's breath caught. I think I'm falling for you. Kale went still. His eyes didn't brighten the way she expected. His face didn't bloom into happiness. Instead, something dark crossed his expression, like a shadow passing over sunlight. Ilara's stomach dropped. What? Kale looked down, jaw tight. Ilara, I. She stepped closer, searching his face. Please don't say something that breaks what we've been building. Kale's voice trembled. I never meant to. Ilara's heartbeat turned loud. Kale, what is it? He swallowed, as if the words were thorns in his throat. I don't deserve you. Ilara scoffed, trying to laugh it off. That's not your decision. Kale's eyes lifted to hers. They were full of something that looked too much like regret. Ilara reached for his hands. Tell me the truth. Kale's fingers tightened around hers like he was holding on to the last safe thing. I'm not as simple as you think. Ilara swallowed hard. Nobody is. Kale shook his head slightly, a warning. No. I mean, my life is complicated. Ilara tried to steady herself. I don't care. I can handle complicated. Kale's voice cracked. You shouldn't have to. A silence stretched between them, thick and dangerous. Ilara's eyes narrowed. Is there someone else? Kale's answer was too fast. No. She watched him, searching. Then why do you look like you're saying goodbye? Kale leaned his forehead to hers, and for a moment Ilara felt the warmth of him so close it made her want to cry. I didn't plan to love you, Kale whispered. Ilara's breath hitched. But you do. Kale closed his eyes. Yes. Then don't push me away, Ilara pleaded. Please. Kale's voice was breaking. Ilara, if you knew what I've done, you'd hate me. Ilara's throat tightened. Try me. Kale opened his eyes slowly. I can't. Not tonight. Ilara pulled back, hurt flashing like lightning. So you get to decide what I can and can't know. Kale's lips parted like he wanted to explain, but fear kept him silent. Ilara's voice shook with anger and pain. I'm not a child. I'm not a fragile thing you get to protect by lying. Kale's eyes glistened. I'm trying to protect you from me. Ilara laughed bitterly. That's the most arrogant thing you've ever said. Kale flinched. I know. Ilara stared at him, heart pounding. Then tell me, Kale. Tell me why loving you feels like stepping toward a cliff. Kale's face tightened. Because I'm standing on the edge with you. Ilara felt her chest compress. What does that mean? Kale stepped back, like distance was the only way he could breathe. It means if you keep choosing me, you might get hurt. Ilara's eyes burned. I'm already hurt. Kale looked at her like he wanted to carve her into his memory. Then he whispered, I'm sorry. And he walked away down the hallway, leaving Ilara in front of her door with her hand still lifted in the air, like she was reaching for someone who had already turned into a ghost. That night, Ilara didn't sleep. She sat on her couch with her phone in her hand, staring at their messages like they were proof that love had happened. At 3:17 a.m., her phone buzzed. Kale, if I disappear, please remember I didn't want to. Ilara's heart lurched. She typed quickly. What are you talking about? Where are you? No reply. She called. Straight to voicemail. Again. Voicemail. Ilara's hands began to shake as panic rose like water in a locked room. She grabbed her coat and ran into the night. Kale's coffee shop was closed. His usual window seat was empty. She ran to his apartment building, breath burning in her chest. The doorman looked at her like she was crazy. Kale Arden, Ilara gasped. I need to see him. The doorman frowned. That tenant moved out this morning. Ilara froze. What? He cleared the place. Said he was relocating. Ilara's vision blurred. Relocating where? The doorman shook his head. Didn't say. Ilara stumbled backward, the world tilting. No, that's impossible. She left the building in a daze, walking without direction until she reached the river bridge where they'd once talked about sunsets. Her phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Unknown. Stop looking for him. Ilara's blood turned cold. She typed, Who is this? Where is Kale? The reply came immediately. Unknown. If you love yourself, you'll forget his name. Alara stared at the screen, trembling as a cruel thought arrived, sharp, undeniable. Cale hadn't left because he didn't love her. He'd left because something in his life was hunting him. And now, by loving him, Alara had stepped into the same danger. Alara didn't go home after the message. She stood on the bridge until the river below stopped looking like it might swallow her whole. The city kept breathing around her, cars rushing, laughter spilling from bars, strangers moving forward with their lives like nothing sacred had just cracked open inside her chest. She reread the message from the unknown number until the words blurred. Stop looking for him. If you love yourself, you'll forget his name. As if love could be switched off like a light. Alara typed back with shaking fingers. You don't get to tell me what to do. No reply. She walked the long way home, replaying every moment with Cale, hunting for clues. The careful way he chose his words. The way he sometimes stared at nothing, like he was listening to a sound only he could hear. The sadness that lived just beneath his calm. At her apartment, Alara dropped her coat on the floor and paced. Her phone sat heavy in her palm. She scrolled through their messages, then stopped at a photo Cale had once sent, a blurry picture of a sunrise over rooftops. Cale, I like mornings because they forgive yesterday. Her chest tightened. You don't get to disappear, she whispered to the empty room. Not after you taught me how to hope again. The next day, Alara went to the coffee shop on Renfield Avenue. The barista recognized her. Haven't seen your friend today, the barista said, sliding her drink across the counter. The quiet guy. Alara forced a smile. Do you know anything about him? The barista shook her head. Just that he tips well and stares at the window like he's waiting for someone who never comes. Alara carried her drink to their usual seat by the window. She sat there longer than she should have, pretending the chair across from her wasn't empty. When she finally stood to leave, her phone vibrated. Unknown, you're persistent. Alara's pulse spiked. Where is he? 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Unknown. Somewhere you can't reach. Alara's jaw tightened. Who are you? A pause stretched. Long enough for fear to grow teeth. Unknown. Someone cleaning up Cale's messes. Alara's stomach dropped. What messes? No reply. That night, Alara barely slept. She dreamed of Cale standing on the other side of a glass wall, pounding his fist, trying to warn her while she couldn't hear a thing. In the morning, she woke to a knock at her door. Alara's heart leapt into her throat. She rushed to the door and flung it open. A woman stood there. Tall, sharp-eyed, dressed in a dark coat that looked like it belonged to someone who didn't ask permission. Alara Voss, the woman said calmly. We need to talk about Cale Arden. Alara's hands clenched. Who are you? The woman held up a badge. Not police. Something else. Official, but not comforting. My name is Mira Hale. I work in private security. Cale is, or was, under my protection. Alara's breath caught. Protection from what? Myra's gaze softened slightly. From people who don't forgive betrayal. Alara stepped back, letting Mira into her apartment. The room suddenly felt too small for the truth that was about to enter. Mira studied Alara like she was measuring damage. You weren't supposed to matter to him. Alara's voice shook. What does that even mean? Mira sighed. Cale was involved with people who operate outside the law. Not criminals in the petty sense. Organized. Dangerous. He tried to leave. Tried to disappear. People don't like losing assets. Alara's chest tightened painfully. Asset. Mira nodded. Cale was useful to them. Smart. Careful. He helped them move money, hide things. He thought he could walk away clean. Alara felt sick. So everything he told me was a lie? Mira shook her head. No. That's the cruel part. What he felt for you is real. Which is why you're in danger. Alara's heart thudded. What kind of danger? Myra's eyes flicked to the window. The kind that comes with loving someone who knows too much. Alara wrapped her arms around herself. Where is he? Mira hesitated. Safe. For now. Alara's voice broke. Can I see him? Myra's answer was gentle and devastating. No. Alara sank onto the couch. So I'm just supposed to forget him? Pretend he never existed. Mira met her gaze. If you want to stay alive, yes. Alara laughed bitterly. You think that's living? Mira studied her for a long moment. Cale asked me to watch over you. Alara's head snapped up. He did. Mira nodded. He said you'd try to look for him. That you'd blame yourself. That you'd refuse to let go. Alara swallowed. He knows me too well. Myra's voice softened. He loved you enough to walk away. Alara shook her head, tears burning. Love doesn't abandon people. Mira didn't argue. Love doesn't always get to choose how it survives. Days turned into a blur. Alara went to work, smiled when spoken to, laughed at the right times. But inside, she lived in the spaces Kale had left behind. She checked her phone too often. She jumped at unknown numbers. She kept hoping for a message that would undo everything. One evening, her phone buzzed. Kale, I'm sorry. Alara's hands shook so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She typed back immediately. Where are you? Are you safe? A minute passed. 2. Kale, I can't tell you. If I do, they'll find you. Alara's eyes blurred. I don't care. I just want you alive. Kale, that's why I have to stay away. Alara pressed her forehead to the wall. I hate this. I hate that you get to decide for both of us. Kale, I know. I hate it too. Alara, did you ever plan to disappear without saying goodbye? 3 dots appeared, then stopped. Kale, no. But sometimes goodbye happens before you're ready to say it. Tears slid down Alara's cheeks. Come back. We'll figure it out together. The pause before his reply felt like the world holding its breath. Kale, I can't bring this into your life. You deserve a future without shadows. Alara's fingers trembled. You are my future. The reply came slower this time. Kale, that's why I have to leave you with one. Alara's chest ached like something inside her was tearing. I don't want a future that doesn't have you. Kale, one day you'll wake up and it won't hurt like this. Promise me you'll keep going until then. Alara's vision swam. Promise me you won't disappear again. A long silence. Kale, I can't promise that. The typing bubble vanished. The chat went quiet. Alara slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, phone clutched to her chest like it could keep him close. Weeks passed. Then months. Mira checked in, sometimes distant but protective. They're still looking, she would say. But they haven't come near you. Alara started leaving her phone face down. Not because she didn't want to hear from Kale, but because every vibration that wasn't him felt like another small betrayal. She tried to move on the way people suggest you do, by filling space with noise. She went out with friends. She laughed. She even went on a few dates. But no one knew how to hold her silence the way Kale had. One night, as Alara walked home, she noticed a familiar figure standing under a streetlight. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Kale. He looked thinner, tired, real in a way her memories couldn't compete with. For a moment, Alara thought her grief had finally started hallucinating. Kale, she whispered. He stepped forward. I shouldn't be here. Alara ran to him before fear could catch her. She crashed into his arms, and for a second the world went quiet, like it respected the reunion. Kale held her tightly. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Alara buried her face in his chest. Don't do this to me. Don't come back just to leave again. Kale pulled back, eyes wet. I had to see you. I needed to know you were okay. Alara searched his face. Are you? Kale's smile was sad. No, but I'm still breathing. Alara cupped his face. Stay. Kale shook his head. I can't. Footsteps echoed nearby. Kale's body tensed. He glanced over his shoulder, fear flickering across his features. They found me, he whispered. Alara's blood ran cold. Who? Before Kale could answer, a car slowed at the corner. Its headlights cut through the dark like knives. Kale stepped back. You have to go. Alara grabbed his hand. No, I'm not losing you again. Kale pressed something into her palm, a small metal key. If anything happens to me, go to the address under my name in the old registry building. There's a box. It has everything I couldn't say. Alara's breath shook. You're talking like... Kale leaned in, forehead to hers. I love you, Alara. More than my fear. More than my past. Her heart cracked open. Then live. Choose us. Kale kissed her once, soft, desperate, final. I am choosing you. By leaving. He stepped away, disappearing into the shadows just as the car door opened. Alara stood frozen, key biting into her palm, the sound of the engine roaring like a promise she didn't believe. Alara stood alone under the streetlight long after Kale vanished into the dark. The car that had slowed at the corner rolled away again, as if it had only come to remind her that danger could breathe right beside love. The night swallowed his footsteps. The cold crept into her bones. In her palm, the small metal key pressed into her skin like a promise she didn't want to believe she would need. She didn't go home right away. She walked until the city thinned into quieter streets, until the noise softened enough for her thoughts to become loud. Kale's voice echoed in her chest. If anything happens to me. No, she whispered to the empty air. Nothing is happening to you. But fear is a stubborn thing. It does not listen to hope. The old registry building stood at the edge of the historic district, a stone structure that time had forgotten. Alara had passed it 100 times without noticing it, the way you pass things that look too heavy with history to belong to your life. The next morning, she stood before its iron doors, heart pounding, key clenched tight. Inside, the building smelled of dust and paper and secrets that had waited too long to be told. A clerk with tired eyes directed her to a back room where small metal boxes lined the walls, each one labeled with a name and a number. Arden Kale, Alara said, her voice barely steady. The clerk found the box and slid it across the counter. You have 10 minutes. Alara's fingers trembled as she fitted the key into the lock. It turned with a soft click that sounded far too loud in the quiet room. Inside the box lay a thin folder and a small voice recorder. Her breath caught. She lifted the recorder first and pressed play. Kale's voice filled the room, close and familiar. Alara, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it back to you. I'm sorry. I know I promised I would try to stay alive, and I am trying. But some debts don't let go. Alara's eyes burned. Don't say that, she whispered. Kale continued, his tone gentle, like he was sitting beside her. I need you to know that nothing I felt for you was a lie. You were the only honest thing in my life. The only place I wasn't pretending to be someone else. Tears slipped down Alara's cheeks, silent and unstoppable. I wanted to tell you everything, Kale said. About how I got pulled into things I couldn't undo. About how I thought I could outsmart people who don't forgive mistakes. I wanted to tell you how tired I am of running. But I didn't want my past to poison your future. Alara pressed a hand to her mouth, a soft sound escaping her throat. If I'm gone, Kale's voice said, don't let my absence become your prison. Love again. Live loudly. Take pictures of people who don't know they're beautiful. Do all the things I was too afraid to stay for. The recording ended with a quiet exhale, like a breath released. Alara stood there shaking, then reached for the folder. Inside were documents, accounts, names, evidence of the life Kale had tried to escape. Proof of danger. Proof of why he had believed leaving her was the only way to protect her. The world tilted. You were carrying all of this alone, she whispered. Outside, the sky darkened with the promise of rain. Alara walked home through a city that felt unfamiliar, as if the streets had shifted while she wasn't looking. Every passing stranger felt like a possible threat. Every shadow looked like it could hide the end of her story with Kale. Days passed with no word. Mira called once. I heard he resurfaced briefly, she said. Then he vanished again. Alara's voice was hollow. Vanished how? Not on his terms, Mira admitted. We're trying to locate him. Alara closed her eyes. Trying isn't enough. That night, Alara dreamed of the river bridge. Kale stood on the edge, rain slicking his hair, smiling at her with that soft, sad smile. Don't come closer, he said. She stepped forward anyway, and the world broke open. Alara woke with a cry lodged in her throat. The message came the next morning. Not from Kale's number. From the same unknown contact that had warned her before. Unknown, he should have stayed away. Alara's heart pounded. She typed back with shaking hands. What did you do to him? 3 dots appeared. Unknown, he chose to be brave. Brave people don't live long in our world. Alara felt the room spin. Is he alive? The pause before the reply was long enough to feel like a sentence. Unknown, not anymore. A sound left Alara that didn't feel human. She slid down the wall, phone slipping from her hand, the world shrinking into a ringing silence. No, this was wrong. Kale had survived storms. He had learned how to stand inside them. He couldn't just be gone. Mira arrived an hour later, breathless, eyes heavy with truth. She didn't need to say anything. The shape of her silence said it all. They found him, Mira said quietly. He made sure they didn't trace anything back to you. Alara stared at the floor, the words passing through her like water through broken glass. Where? A warehouse by the docks, Mira said. He bought time. Long enough for us to move you out of their reach. Alara laughed weakly. He always did that. Bought time for everyone else. Myra's voice softened. He died protecting you. The sentence landed like a weight on Alara's chest, heavy and final. She couldn't breathe around it. No, Alara whispered. He died because he loved me. Mira shook her head gently. Those aren't opposites. The funeral was small and quiet. There was no casket, no body. Just a name written on a piece of paper in a place that didn't feel real enough to hold grief. Alara stood alone, rain soaking into her coat, watching the earth darken with water. She spoke to the empty space where Kale should have been. You told me to live loudly. I don't know how to be loud without you. The wind carried no answers. Weeks turned into months. The city softened back into something familiar. Alara went back to work. She took photos again. People who didn't know they were beautiful stared out from her prints, honest and vulnerable. One evening, she returned to the river bridge. The sunset painted the water in colors Kale would have liked. She lifted her camera and captured the moment, her hands steady now. I'm still here, she whispered to the air. I'm still breathing. Love didn't end when Kale did. It changed shape. It became a quiet ache, a gentle presence in the background of her life. Some days it hurt less. Some days it surprised her with its weight. But it never disappeared. Alara learned that beautiful love does not promise beautiful endings. Sometimes love is the warmth of a hand you can no longer hold. Sometimes it is the courage to keep walking when the person who taught you how to hope is no longer beside you. Sometimes it is choosing to live in a world that took your favorite thing away. On the anniversary of the day she'd first met Kale, Alara sat by her window and watched the city forgive yesterday again. She lifted her camera and framed the light. Thank you, she whispered, not sure who she was thanking anymore. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps keep stories like this alive, reminding us that even the cruelest endings can leave behind something true.